The invitation came by text message. The first communication from my mother in 3 years. Your birthday is next Saturday. Come to my apartment at 2 p.m. I want to celebrate with you. I stared at the message for a long time. My 33rd birthday. The last time I'd seen my mother was on my 30th, when she told me I was wasting my life on a company that would never succeed. She said I should get a real job before I ended up homeless. 2 weeks ago, that company, Secure, the cybersecurity platform I built from my studio apartment, completed its initial public offering. It was now publicly traded on NASDAQ, valued at $2.1 billion. I owned 38% of the shares. On paper, I was worth approximately $800 million. The IPO had been covered extensively. TechCrunch, Bloomberg, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes. My face had appeared on the cover of 2 industry magazines. We'd done the traditional bell-ringing ceremony at NASDAQ, and videos of it had flooded social media. My mother apparently hadn't noticed. I should have ignored her invitation. I should have maintained the estrangement that had brought me peace for 3 years. But some part of me, the part that still remembered being a child desperate for her mother's approval, couldn't help hoping she had changed. Maybe she genuinely wanted to reconnect. I was wrong. I arrived at her apartment in Queens at exactly 2 p.m. She lived in a decent 2-bedroom in a neighborhood that had been gentrifying for the past 5 years. I knew the rent was $3,800 a month, because I'd been paying it anonymously for the past 4 years through a property management company. He didn't know. She thought a charitable fund had been covering her rent after she lost her administrative job and couldn't find another that paid enough. I had set it up that way deliberately, using a trust structure that kept my identity hidden. I told myself I was doing it because she was my mother. Because I didn't want her to be homeless. Because, despite everything, I still had some sense of familial obligation. Looking back, I think I was just hoping that if I took care of her from a distance, someday she'd realize I wasn't a failure. Maybe someday she'd be proud of me. I knocked on the door. She opened it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I wasn't sure you would. You invited me, I said simply. Come in. I have some people here who want to see you. The first red flag should have been that phrase. People who want to see you. Not friends, not family, just people. I walked into the living room and stopped. Sitting on the couch were 3 people I hadn't seen since high school. Jennifer Torres, who had spent 2 years making my life miserable, spreading rumors, pouring juice on my homework, tripping me in hallways. Marcus Webb, who had shoved me into lockers and once pushed me down a flight of stairs. And Brittany Kim, who had orchestrated my social exclusion, sent me hateful messages online and convinced others I was diseased. My childhood bullies in my mother's apartment on my birthday. Surprise, my mother said behind me. I thought it would be nice to have a reunion. You all were so close in school. Close. That's what she called it. Mom, what is this? I asked quietly. Oh, don't be dramatic, she replied. Jennifer reached out to me on Facebook last year. We've been chatting. She mentioned how you all used to know each other. I thought it would be fun. Jennifer stood and smirked. Happy birthday, Sarah. Long time no see. The same smirk she'd worn in high school, the one that meant cruelty was coming and she'd get away with it. I should go, I said, turning toward the door. Wait, my mother said, her voice etched with something dark. Now you're not going to run away like you always do. Like you ran away from everything, your family, responsibility, reality. I didn't run away. I built a life. You built a fantasy, she said. Playing with computers in your apartment, pretending you're some kind of entrepreneur. You're 33 years old with no real job, no husband, no children. You're exactly where you were in high school. Nothing. Jennifer laughed. Marcus grinned. Brittany pulled out her phone. That's why I invited them, my mother continued, her voice growing louder. So you could see that nothing has changed. You're still the same scared little girl who couldn't stand up for herself. You're still nothing. She looked at my former bullies. Show her she's still nothing. And they did. Jennifer started with my clothes. Simple jeans and a sweater. The same I'd worn in high school because I couldn't afford trendy fashion. Marcus mocked my appearance, my weight, my hair. The same insults from 15 years ago delivered with the same casual cruelty. Brittany didn't speak. She just held up her phone, recording me like she used to post cruel captions online. My mother watched with her arms crossed, nodding as if they were making valid points. I stood there for about 30 seconds, letting them perform their cruelty, feeling like I was 17 again. Then I picked up my purse and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" my mother demanded. "You can't just leave. This is your birthday party." "Goodbye, Mom," I said quietly and left. I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't cry walking to my car. I got in my Tesla, drove home to my Manhattan apartment and sat on my couch for an hour just processing what had happened. My mother had invited my childhood bullies to my birthday. She had orchestrated a reunion specifically to humiliate me. She had no idea what I'd become. 2 weeks ago I'd stood on the NASDAQ floor and watched my company go public. The games she had mocked for a decade had become a platform used by 15,000 companies to protect their networks. I employed 240 people. Forbes had just listed me as one of the most successful female tech founders under 40. She had no idea. She'd never asked, never looked, never cared enough to Google my name or check LinkedIn. She'd been too busy thinking I was a failure to notice that I had succeeded. That evening I made one phone call. "Richard, this is Sarah Morrison. I need to cancel the arrangement we have for the unit at 847 Vernon Avenue." "Cancel? Are you sure? That's been running smoothly for 4 years." "I'm sure." "Effective immediately. Final payment was this month. Starting next month, the tenant is responsible for full rent." "Understood. I'll process the termination and notify the tenant tomorrow. Thank you." I hung up and sat in silence. 4 years of payments, $3,800 a month. I had paid over $180,000 to keep my mother's house while she told people I was a failure. The next morning, Richard, the property manager, called my mother to inform her that her rent subsidy had been terminated. He told me later that she had been hysterical, demanding to know why, insisting there must be a mistake, crying about how she couldn't afford the rent without help. He had explained patiently that the arrangement had been funded by a private benefactor who had chosen to end it. He could not disclose the benefactor's identity. She had 30 days to either pay the rent herself or vacate the unit. She called me 16 times that day. I didn't answer. She texted me 43 messages. I didn't respond. She even showed up at my old address, the studio apartment in Brooklyn I hadn't lived in for 2 years. The current tenant called the police. 3 days after her rent subsidy ended, someone tagged her in a LinkedIn post, one of her former coworkers congratulating me on Secur's successful IPO, sharing an article from TechCrunch with my photo prominently displayed. "Sarah Morrison," the article read, "has built Secur from nothing into a $2.1 billion company in 8 years." My mother called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. "You." Her voice was shaking. "It was you. You're the one who's been paying my rent. Yes, you have millions of dollars and you're going to let me get evicted. You invited my childhood bullies to my birthday and told them to show me I'm nothing. Yes. I'm going to let you get evicted. That was just supposed to be motivational, to make you wake up and do something with your life. I built a company worth over $2 billion. I employ hundreds of people. I've created something that matters. What exactly did you think I needed to wake up from? I didn't know about the company. You never asked. In 10 years you never once asked what I was building. You just assumed I was failing because that's what you wanted to believe. I'm your mother. You can't do this to me. You're right. I can't do this to you. You did this to yourself. I spent 4 years paying your rent anonymously because I thought maybe if I took care of you, you'd eventually see that I wasn't what you believed I was. But you never looked. You were too busy telling me I was nothing. So, you're going to make me homeless? You're going to have to pay rent like everyone else. Get a job. Get a roommate. Move somewhere cheaper. Do what the rest of us do when we can't afford something. Figure it out. This is cruel. No. Inviting people who tormented me for years to mock me on my birthday was cruel. Calling me a failure while I was building a company was cruel. This, I said, is just me stopping my participation in your delusion. I hung up and blocked the number. The eviction notice was served 28 days later when she failed to pay rent. She tried to fight it, claiming she'd been promised lifetime assistance. She couldn't prove it. The arrangement had always been deliberately anonymous. The judge gave her 30 more days to vacate. She called my siblings, my 3 younger brothers who had always been her golden children. They believed her story for years, that I was the difficult daughter who had abandoned the family, who thought she was too good for them. Now she was telling them I was refusing to help her, that I had millions and was letting her become homeless out of spite. My youngest brother, Michael, was the one who finally reached out. He sent a careful text message. "Mom says you won your company or something and now you won't help her with rent. Is that true?" I sent him a link to the TechCrunch article about Secur's IPO. Then I sent him a screenshot of the rent payments I'd been making for 4 years. Then I told him exactly what had happened at my birthday party. He called 2 hours later. I had no idea about any of it. The company, the rent payments, what she did. She didn't tell you what she was planning? No, she just said she was having a birthday party for you. Said she was trying to reconnect. I told him about Jennifer, Marcus, and Brittany, what they'd done to me in high school, what my mother had known, and what she'd orchestrated now. "That's disturbing," Michael said quietly. "That's genuinely disturbing. What kind of parent does that? The kind who's been telling people I'm a failure for a decade while I was building a billion-dollar company," I said. Michael was quiet for a moment. "The rent payments, you've been taking care of her this whole time. And she didn't even know. I thought if I helped her, eventually she'd see I was doing okay. That I wasn't what she thought I was. I was wrong. She didn't want to see me succeed. She wanted me to fail so she could feel superior. What are you going to do about the eviction?" "Nothing. He's an adult. She'll figure it out." 2 months later, my mother moved in with my oldest brother and his wife. The arrangement lasted 6 weeks before they asked her to leave after she made a comment about their daughter's weight that sent the child into tears. She moved in with Michael. That lasted 3 months before his girlfriend gave him an ultimatum. She's currently living in a studio apartment in a cheaper neighborhood, working part-time at a grocery store, and telling anyone who will listen that her ungrateful daughter abandoned her despite having millions. My brothers now know the truth. My extended family has mostly figured it out. The ones who matter know that I spent 4 years anonymously supporting a woman who told my childhood bullies to show me I was nothing. Secure continues to grow. We're now valued at over $3 billion. I've bought a house in the Hudson Valley, not ostentatious, just a peaceful place with good internet and a garden. I've donated substantial amounts to anti-bullying programs and scholarship funds for girls studying computer science. And I've stopped trying to win my mother's approval. Some people will never see you for who you are because they need you to be who they decided you were. My mother needed me to be a failure because my success would mean acknowledging she'd been wrong about me for 30 years. I gave her 4 years of anonymous support, $180,000, and countless chances to see me clearly. She chose instead to invite my bullies to prove I was nothing. So I let her discover exactly what nothing actually looks like. No more secret benefactor. No more safety net. Just the natural consequences of her choices. I've been asked if I regret cutting her off, if I feel guilty about the eviction, if I plan to reconcile someday. I don't. And no, some bridges burn themselves.